methodologies in our daily life. So without any delay, let's proceed to our event. We are here today for a talk on traditional and agile software development. The main difference between traditional and agile approaches is the sequence of project phases: requirement gathering, planning, design, development, testing, and UAT. In traditional development methodologies, the sequence of the phases in which the project is developed is linear, whereas in Agile, it is iterative. This topic would be explained more clearly to us by Mr. Loovesh Ramwodin, who is a full-time lecturer and researcher at Amity University. He has served various public and private enterprises as lecturer. His field of expertise are agile, software development, artificial intelligence, Industry 4.0, and other emerging technologies. To get started with our event, I would like to invite the president of IEEE UTM Branch to deliver a small speech. Please welcome Mr. Muzakir bin Mohamed.
Thank you, Mrs. Meshi. Good morning, everyone. IEEE is the world's largest technical professional organization dedicated to the advancing technology for the benefit of humanity. IEEE and its members inspire excellence through its highly cited publications, conferences, and technology standards and professional and educational activities. Through its global membership, IEEE is the leading authority on areas ranging from aerospace systems, computers, and telecommunications to biomedical engineering, electric power, and consumer electronics. The IEEE Student Chapter of the University of Technology was created in the year of 2019 with the blessing of Associate Professor Dr. Amugam, whom I would like to thank for his unfailing support. We started with 11 members, but since we have been growing fast, our core mission is to foster technological innovation and excellence for the benefit of humanity at large. On the other side, it has helped us members go out of our comfort zone and acquire new skills. Learning, indeed, does not occur only within the four walls of a classroom or laboratory. The pandemic has been a challenge, but engineers believe in converting challenges into opportunities. Online events have allowed us to interact with researchers, engineers, and other students throughout the world. Today, it is an honor for the IEEE Student Chapter of the University of Technology, Mauritius, to contribute to such an auspicious event. Please allow me to thank everyone who has worked hard behind the scenes to make this event a reality, especially my exclusive team and our guest of today, Mr. Loovesh Ramwodin. I'm confident that you will have a fruitful morning. Thank you for your attention. Now I would like to pass back with Ms. Neshi, who will have a few words back with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Din Mohamed, for the introduction to IEEE UTM Branch and its activities. Now, I would like to invite Mr. Loovesh Ramwodin to the floor to deliver and share his knowledge about the main topic of the day to all of us. Please give a warm welcome to Mr. Loovesh Ramwodin. The floor is yours now, Mr. Loovesh.
Thank you, Sneshi. Thank you, Muzakia. Thank you for this nice introduction, Sneshi. I think you already explained the whole concept about the agile methodology and traditional one with your brief introduction. You make my talk a little more complicated. Let me just share my screen with you and you can start this talk. Thank you. Just remove my video for the purpose of the internet connection. Okay, great. So I'm like Sneshi introduced my career, academic path. I'm a lecturer full-time now at Amity Mauritius, but also I served numerous private institutions in Mauritius, okay, UTM, University of Mascarin, and I saw some students from Middlesex as well join us today, so thank you very much. And in terms of my industrial experience, I have served as a network engineer at Orange Business Services, and also I've been for 2 years a software engineer at Accenture Mauritius before I moved to the academic world. And now I'm also doing my PhD in the field of artificial intelligence relating with the education sector. So it's a brief introduction about me. And today we'll talk about a very, very big topic, which is software engineering and the different path we have in software engineering, which is the traditional method we have in developing projects. And now we have the very big word, everybody's saying we are agile. All IT industry we have in Mauritius, they say we abide to be agile methodology, but we need to know what is agile methodology, what's the difference between traditional and agile methodology, and also, are we really abiding to the agile methodology? So it depends on the organization. It depends on the project we are working on. So I will share my experience with you, my experience I had at Orange Business Service and at Accenture. But also, I think today's topic will also help you for your dissertation. I'm sure most of you at the end of the year have a project to do, either it is something electronic wise or something relating with your software design. And you will have some steps to do your project. And I think today I will be able to help you even for your project, like what are the different steps you need to do and what methodology are you going to use really for your final year project as well. So just a little definition of IEEE, like I said, software engineering is a methodology where you have to be disciplined, you have to stick to an approach while you design your software. It's very easy to say, okay, but it's very difficult to implement in the industry. You see, for any construction project you want to build a house, you want to build a bridge, it's very easy. You have a time frame, you have people working on it, you have project management frameworks you used. But when it comes to design a software, when it comes relating a project with software, it's more complicated. It's very difficult to stick to a proper framework, okay? And this is one of the most difficult projects actually, which is to develop a software. And at the end of the day, you found yourself not respecting the budget which the client gave you, or the quality of the software is not good because you had to rush to meet with the deadlines. And this is why you have a lot of bugs, a lot of problems when you deliver the final product to the customer. Sometimes you don't meet with the duration of the project and you have some penalties to pay with the client. Okay, you see, for your dissertation, you are not, or even an assignment, you are not respecting the deadline. Some marks are being cut by your lecturer or by your supervisor. In the real world, in the industry, there's no marks to be allocated there. Okay, you have legal contract with the clients that say, look, you have to deliver me a product or a software in a deadline of 3 months, 4 months. You have to respect this deadline. In case it happens, you don't meet with the deadlines, you have to pay penalties, money fine that you have to give to the client. And this is why having a good relationship with the client is also very important. This is why Agile comes into play, where we keep a very professional but friendly relationship with the customer. So this is what I'm going to explain for today about the Agile methodology. And one model of Agile is Scrum model. One most common used model actually is the Scrum one, but we need to know how to use it and where it's applicable to use it. It's not applicable everywhere, okay? One department can be agile in a company, but another department not doing any programming concept or development concept, they can't stick to agile or even to traditional method. You have to look at this carefully, okay? But just keep in mind that no matter you are using traditional method or you are using an agile method to develop a software, you have some generic activities in the software development. The first one is the software specification. Okay, software specification is a very important step while designing a software, a product. Even for your dissertation, it applies. You need to know what is the requirement from the customer. Okay, the customer, most of the time, they are non-IT people. They don't understand IT. They have a problem and they want to solve the problem with a software. So they will just come to you and say, look, I have a problem in my company. I want to solve it. I want to develop a software. Can you help me? But this person, they are non-IT people. They don't know the proper specification. This is why software specification is an important step for you to ask the maximum question to the customer, to try to get the maximum information out of the customer, to know what are the requirements of the software, of the product. What do you want to do? Can I produce or can I make a software to be able to assist this person? Sometimes no. IT software cannot solve all the problems. Okay, so you should be very careful. Just say yes, and then you found yourself not able to meet with the requirement of the customer is a very big issue. And this is something we face a lot in the industry as well. So you should be very careful. Ask the proper specification, what are the requirements you want me to do, what you want the software to do. Based on that, you define a set of functional requirements. Functional requirement means what the software has to do. Okay, and then you have a list of non-functional requirements. Non-functional requirements look about the aspect of security, about the aspect of presentation, like what color you want the software to be. Okay, the formatting aspects of the software. This is the non-functional requirement. Both are very important. Okay, because you need the functional requirement to be able to use the software properly, and you need the non-functional requirement to have some very good presentation about the software, to have the security aspect of the software. So this is the first part, and it doesn't matter you are using the traditional method or you are using the agile method. For all of them, you have these generic activities that you have to proceed. The second one is the software development process. Now that you know what are the requirements, you need to develop it. Okay, so you have a set of tools that you have to use to be able to deliver, to mount a product, the software, so at the end of the day, you can deliver it to the client. Of course, you get money for that. The third part is the software validation, which is very important. You see, you are developing something not for you, not for your company. You are developing a product, you are developing a software here for the customer. So the validation of the customer is very, very important. Let's assume you develop a product and at the end of the day, the customer is not happy with that final product. This is a very big issue. Okay, and you have wasted a lot of time, a lot of effort. You have wasted, in other words, money to be able to have this final product, and the customer is not happy. So you have to redo the whole process now to meet with the requirement of the customer. So software validation is a very, very important process where you need to get the feedback of a customer. Most of the time, with traditional method, it's very difficult to get the validation at the start of the project, but we will see with Agile, we have continuous meeting with the customer. We have continuous demo with the customer to show, look, this is what I'm going to develop for you. Look, this is how the functional requirements are. This is how the presentation is. And you get the feedback from the customer, which is very important. Based on this feedback, on the comments, you are able to modify your product, your software to align with what the customer wants. Because you have to respect the requirement of the customer. They are the one that will bring money back to the company. If they are happy, they will recommend you to our friends or colleagues maybe, and you will get more money. Okay. And lastly, you have the software evolution. You see, like I've always been saying, there's no product, there's no software which is error-free. Okay, even for a database that is linked to your software, there's a certain margin of error that may happen. Even a product you have fully tested, you still have some bugs that may happen. And this is why you have this software evolution where you have to give a maintenance on that. Okay, you have, for example, if I may say here in Accenture, you have a lot of departments that they are involved only in this part of evolution, where they are not responsible for the development of any project. Okay, they don't do any programming. Their role is just to ensure that the client is able to use the product properly. In case there is any issue, the client will have a ticketing system, like the client will open the ticket, will address what is the issue, and send this ticket to the department, to Accenture. And there, okay, they will analyze the ticket, try to find a solution for that, and of course, help the customer to use the software properly. So this is the software evolution. You have to give a maintenance on the product that you sold or sell to your customer. Now, it doesn't matter if you're using traditional or agile method, these generic activities, they are for all software development processes. Even tomorrow for your dissertation, you will have to use all the following activities, stepwise, of course, to meet with your dissertation, to meet with your project. So like I'm saying, this is the generic process life cycle, okay? The specification, which is very important again, to define the functional and non-functional requirement of a product, of the software. You have a design phase. The design phase is one phase which is very important, but unfortunately, we don't really make use of it in the industry, okay? In the design phase, you see, you have a requirement. It doesn't mean you have necessary to go and implement it. You need to properly manage the requirement. What programming language are you going to use to develop it? Just because I'm very good in Java doesn't mean that I'll have to develop this software in Java. You need to go, you need to find which is the appropriate tools, which are the appropriate frameworks you are going to use for to develop the application. Okay, what database are you going to use? This is in terms of the technical aspect. But first, I'm sure you heard about this word, which is called wireframe diagrams. You need to have some visual wireframe, like it's a visual, it's a display of how the interface will look. Okay, you have free software to do it. And at the end of today's talk, I'll give you some free link where you can use it to create wireframe. You can use it to do the whole agile framework, different steps. Okay, but you need to have wireframe diagrams, for example, which is a visual interface display of how the product will look at the end. This is not coding. You're just drawing the interface. But this is very important because you show it to the customer. Look, this is how the final product will look through diagrams called wireframe. And here you get the feedback of the customer. The customer can say, look, this button, I'm not happy with it. I want to increase the size. I want the color of the background to be a different one. And based on that, you know what you have to implement for this customer so that at the end of the day, the customer is happy with your product. So design phase is something very important. And unfortunately, we don't use it really in the industry. We have this mindset that, look, I've been working in the industry for 2 or 3 years. I'm a very experienced programmer. Let's just skip this phase because they assume it's a waste of time. And we move directly to the implementation phase, which is not true. This is one of the major reasons at the end, when you have your final product shown to the customer is not happy because you have not involved this customer when you had this design phase. So ensure when you go and work in the industry, you implement this design phase, which is very important again. Even for your dissertation, I'm sure your supervisor will ask you, before you go into the coding, tell me what are the different programming language are you going to use? Design the wireframe diagram, show it to me so that I have an understanding of how the final product will look. And of course, this is very important because you have feedback of your supervisor as well. Okay, and then of course you move to the implementation phase where you turn all your paperwork, okay, you turn it into the software. So here you have the programming, you have the team trying to implement using programming languages the solution, and you move to the testing where whatever you have built, you have to test it. Now, testing, it has 3 phases of testing. One which is called the unit testing. For example, I have one functional requirement, which is users shall allow to log in. Means a user need to be able to log in into a website or into a system. So I have developed it. I need to unit test it, means check if a user can log into the system using a valid ID, using a valid password. Then again, I do another unit testing where I wrongly put, for example, the username. I wrongly put the password and see if there's an error message back, an appropriate error message, I must say here. So this is testing called the unit testing. You test each functional requirement stepwise, one by one. Check if they're working properly. The second type of testing that you have is called the system testing. Now you have the whole system working. You check if everything is happening properly. You check if the user is able to use the system, if there's no errors. So this is testing the whole system, called system testing. And now you have another type of testing, depending on the life cycle you used, is called the integration testing. Okay, we see with Agile that normally you develop one version of a system. Based on this one version, you will keep on adding other functional requirement. You keep on upgrading the system, but you need to test that this process of upgrading the system with new functional requirement is happening properly. Like there's no errors happening, there's no misconflict that is happening. So this is very important, and testing is a very important job in the industry. You have department only for testing, they are responsible for that. You have, if you go and look for the vacancies, there's a lot of vacancies looking for people who knows how to do testing. Okay, and for your dissertation, it applies the same. You will have to create a lot of use case diagram where you will put what are the different testing you have covered to ensure that your final product is okay, it's working perfectly fine. And lastly, of course, you have the maintenance. Okay, maintenance, like I said, is to ensure that there's no bugs, the project or the software is working perfectly fine. And of course, in case it will happen, believe me, but in case there is any bugs happening, you have to create patch. You have to send it there, like improved the functional requirement, ensure it's working perfectly fine. Now, coming back to the maintenance part, when you have a contract with a customer, normally, let's say you have a duration of 3 or 4 months to make a product, make a software for the customer. And during this phase, of course, you will develop, you will implement the system. Once you have deployed the system, deploy means you have sent the system to the customer, for the customer to use. Based on your contract, you have around 1 or 2 months additional to give this maintenance, like to give a support to the customer to ensure that the customer is able to use the product, the software, fine. Okay. In case there's any mistakes or any bugs happening, through a ticketing system, they will address the problems to you, and of course, you provide the maintenance back. So this depends on the contract that you have with the customer. But also, let's assume now 5 months, the contract is over. You have then what we call like maintenance teams, and we have a lot of such type of team in the industry. Their role is to have an additional contract with the customer, maybe 2 years or 3 years contract, and their role is just to keep providing support to the customer. That's all. In case there's a bug, customer will open a ticket and the team will provide maintenance to the customer. So does it mean that tomorrow, after your degree in software engineering, all of you will go for development processes? Okay, no. Actually, there are departments involved only for development of project. You have another department involved in this testing part here. You have other department where they provide only maintenance to the customer. You are good in IT, but also you have very good communication skills. They will place you in a department called the business people department, where your role is to liaise, to deal with the customer, getting the specification with the customer. So as an IT people, you should be able to fit in all the departments. Of course, it depends on you. If you're very good in programming, I'll encourage you to go in the implementation department. But if you're good in testing or very good in having relationship with the customer, communication skills, but still have this IT background, which is very important, you can go into the business department. So this is the process life cycle, and it applies for all methodologies we have. It doesn't matter if it is traditional one or if you are using the agile methodology. Okay. Now we have a lot of traditional method, but due to the time constraint we have for today, and this is a very big topic in itself, I will focus on the two mostly used traditional methodologies we have in the industry, which is the waterfall model and the iterative model, and then we'll move to the agile concept, and the Scrum model is mostly used in the industry again. But the waterfall model is something very old, one of the oldest development framework we had. And again, like I said, in all of the different frameworks, we will have requirement specification, design phase, implementation, testing, debugging, okay, maintenance. You have all the following activities. But it is the way how we proceed through them that will define if we are using a traditional method or if we are using the agile method. For example, the waterfall model is a very rigid model. When I say rigid, it means that you need to complete one phase before you move to another phase. Okay, and for example, when you have completed all the requirement gathering, only then you are able to move to the design phase. Once the design phase is over, then you move to the implementation phase. There's no comeback. You have to go like a waterfall stepwise through all the different changes. And at the end of the day, okay, you have your final product that you will deliver to the customer. So this is a very rigid model. We have been using it a lot, and we found that sometimes it's not appropriate for certain projects. Okay, you see, just because we are in this new era of new type of software, emerging technologies, that we need to say we are all using agile methodologies. That's not true. Okay, depending on the project complexity you have, based on that you will select an appropriate framework. For example, we still use waterfall model. Okay, a lot of people say they have figured out that we don't use waterfall model. That's not true. It depends on the complexity of your project. Waterfall model is appropriate for small project. Okay, you have a very small project to implement, not much of functional and non-functional requirements, just a few of them. You won't go use agile. You will use the waterfall model because it's a very rigid model. It is very point-wise what you have to do. Okay, and it does not cost a lot as well. So in terms of money, a small project will not bring a lot of money to you. So you stick to the waterfall model. The second one we have is called the iterative delivery model. Now, this is the one we are using a lot in the industry. I even believe that for your dissertation, you will use this one, okay? Later we'll understand why you don't use Agile for your dissertation. But this one is the one we use a lot in the industry currently, okay? Like, again, it is the same process: specification, design and development, testing and implementation. But in this case, what happened is, instead of developing the project like a big project at the final, like waterfall model, here we'll break it down. Okay, let's say we have certain amount of functional requirement that we have gathered. We start working on it. We start developing it. We tested it. We don't wait at the end to test it. We just test it right now once we have completed it. Okay, and we can even show it to the customer, to the client. Look, this is the first version of the product. Based on that, we'll keep on upgrading the product. So we'll keep on adding functional requirements. Again, we add some functional requirement, you have to test it, show it to the customer. So likewise, interactively, you moved from one version, a second version, a third version, and you keep on upgrading the system. At the end, you get your final product. And this is the one, the most common one we use in the software industry when we have to develop a project. And this one is appropriate for medium-sized project. Okay, for big one, we move to the agile methodology. But for medium size, we go with an iterative delivery model. And again, it's not much expensive to implement, but sometimes you need to get appropriate person with the skills to work as a team for this. Then it may become expensive, okay, to get the resource person. And one disadvantage I must say here with this system, sometimes you don't involve the customer a lot. Okay, and like I'm saying, getting the customer feedback at the very start is very important to ensure that the product is okay, to ensure that there's a success at the end when you deliver the project. So here, it's quite hectic to deal with a customer, because we may, at the end of one version, then show the product to the customer. Okay, now if we have a negative feedback from a customer, we have again to go through all the different steps to do the modification or to upgrade the software, depending on the feedback or the comment of the customer. So, but this is a major one we are using currently in industry. Okay, even in Accenture, I use this iterative delivery model for a few years or a few projects. Then, of course, we shift to Agile, but still, we didn't have this, like, the team didn't properly know how to stick with Agile, and we keep on implementing iterative delivery model, and we are saying that this is Agile. We are Agile, but that was not true. Okay, later we found that we had to do some modification on the methodology we used to stick to say, now we are truly Agile methodology. So like I'm saying, okay, they do have some positive aspect. Okay, we do use it, believe me. Just because a lot of companies say we are agile means they stick to agile methodology for all their departments. That's not true. Okay, for your dissertation, I'm sure you will use the interactive delivery model. You are one person only, you're not a team, one person only, and you will have to go stepwise to with your functional and non-functional requirement to get your product, your software at the end of the day. Okay, so you will stick with the interactive delivery model. So some like some positive aspect and negative aspect of both traditional method we have to look at. Okay, and we do use them, but they depend on the complexity of the project. Like I said, if you have a small project, okay, you won't lose a lot of money on that. You stick with the waterfall model because they have all the same steps that you will have to go stepwise to proceed. You have a medium-sized project, you stick with the iterative delivery model. Now, when you have very big project and the duration to deliver it is quite short, this is when you move to the agile methodology that we will look at. So agile, big word. I mean, I hear it every day. We are all saying we are agile. I use the agile methodology, and sometimes came across some dissertation for students where in the design phase they have this word there. We have used, or I have used the agile methodology to design my project and implement my software. Okay, so I know it's a very beautiful word. We all want to say we are agile, but we need to know what is agile methodology, what are the models we have in agile methodology, and when we use it. Okay, for example, like I said earlier, in a company you don't have only implementation or development department. You have another department only for testing. You have a department that deal only with a customer. Okay, but now in this department they won't use the agile methodology. You have a new department coming now, which is called the DevOps department. And DevOps is involved a lot with deployment solution. They deploy the solution to the customer. This is their only role. In such type of department, you can't be agile. Okay, there is no development process happening. So agile is only for department involved in software production, like implementation of the software. Again, we have now to know how we use the agile principle. So this is why you have a group of software engineers that came with 4 agile manifesto, like 4 agile rules that we need to use, that we need to implement, and only then we can say, we are agile. We develop application using the agile methodology. Now, agile methodology is quite similar with interactive development. Same here, okay? You will develop a software based on interactive and incremental development. Like I have a set of functional requirements, I take them, I start working on them. The moment I'm working on them, I will also do my testing, my unit testing to ensure it's working perfectly fine. And if it's okay, I will show it to the customer, have a demo with the customer, get the feedback of the customer. In case there's any change to be done, I will modify it. In case it's okay, I have a green light with the customer, then I move to another set of functional requirements. We look at these different terms later on, and we keep on working like this. At the end, we put all the different functional requirements together, like all the different versions we have, we build them together, we integrate them together, and we have the final product. We do our system testing to ensure that everything is working perfectly fine. Again, another demo with the customer, and we sell it to the customer. So this is the agile methodology, how we proceed. But the full manifesto we have in agile methodology is said that, look, people are going to work in the software to implement the software. So we need to emphasize, we need to encourage the people working in the team. The interaction is very important. If you have in a project, if you have proper good interaction with your different colleagues, you ensure, okay, that you get a good product. You ensure that the working environment is positive. This is why I said we need to emphasize on the people working in the team. And we say, look, we are going to make a team cross-functional. Cross-functional means we are going to have someone skillful in coding, in implementation of a software. In the same team, we are going to put someone which is very good in testing. We are going to have a person good in dealing with the customer, communication, and having a good relationship with the customer. So we are going to make a team cross-functional, where you have a single team, and in this single team, you have people with all the knowledge together. So that if the developers, they are implementing a functional requirement, for example, in the same team, I save time here, in the same team, I have someone that will test it for me. In the same team, I have someone that will be able to go and show it to the customer with all his communication skills. So we say, let's merge team together now. Instead of having one team only responsible for development, instead of having another team responsible only for testing, we are going to merge them. And this saves a lot of time. Okay, this saves a lot of time. Why? In the previous example, like in the old scenario, let's assume that I work in the development team. I'm a developer. I have developed a product. I have developed, for example, one functional requirement. Now I will have to go through a certain hierarchy. I will have to inform, for example, my team leader. Look, I have completed this functional requirement. We have to test it. Can you send this request to the testing team? Now, my team leader here will send an official email to the team leader of a testing team. Again, the team leader of the testing team will get this response and we say, okay, yeah, we are free. Send us your functional requirement that you want to test, for example, and the testing team will work on it, will test it. So this series of steps, it takes a lot of time. You have to go through a lot of people to get the solution. And now imagine in a big project you have for customers, there's not one requirement. There are sometimes 100, 200 requirements depending on the complexity of the project. And if you have to do such type of steps for all functional requirements you have, I'm not sure you will be able to respect the due time given to you to deliver the project. So it takes a lot of time. And this is one of the major reasons you have project failure. You are not able to meet with a deadline given to you. And this is considered as a project failure here. Okay. And instead, what the Agile Manifesto said is, let's group a team together. Let's have a smaller team where you have people with all the knowledge together and we save time. Now, assuming I'm developing the software, okay, I'm developing the functional requirement, my friend just beside me is the tester. I can say, hey, test it for me, just check if everything is working perfectly fine. And once my friend has tested the software, the functional requirement, another colleague here in my team will be able to go and have a demo with a customer. You see, we save a lot of time when we have this function called cross-functional team. Let's put people with a set of skills, a set of knowledge together, working together. This is the first thing which is very important in Agile. This is what we say being Agile. Okay. Also, when we are using this Agile methodology, we have another manifesto, another rules that we use is, instead of having very big documentation, this documentation, they serve as contract, okay, with a customer. So instead of having very big documentation with a customer, like we list down all the functional requirements, what you have to do, or the non-functional requirement that the software needs to have, very, very big documentation, which takes a lot of time to have, okay, we say, let's minimize it. We do need to have it, okay? It's very important because this is the legal contract, in other words, you have with the customer, okay? When the customer sign it, means whatever is present as functions and non-functional requirement on the paper, this is what you have to implement. So this is a legal contract you have with customers. But we say, okay, instead of having very rigid one, we have a smaller one, we save up time. And at the end of the day, instead of showing to the customer based on paper what we have completed and so on, we'll have a demo. Okay, we'll show a working software to the customer. Seeing, for example, the functional requirement listed on paper and seeing a working software is two things very different. The customer is more happy to see the progress of what's happening on his or her product. So this is very important. This is why later we learn Scrum, where you have this function of having a demo at the end of a set of functional requirements you have completed. You have at the end a little demo that you have with a customer to show how this interface is, to show how the different functions are, how the customer can use it. And this helps you to have a good relationship with the customer in terms of having a feedback with the customer, showing the progress of a project with the customer. And it may happen tomorrow for certain X or Y reason, you have not been able to deliver the software in time. Okay, you need to have buffers in project, but it may happen one or two colleagues were sick, there was an electrical problem, electrical power cut. So it may happen you have not meet with a deadline, but still having a good relationship with a customer can save you here. Okay, and why you can have this good customer collaboration is just because you show daily, I mean, not daily, but you have a weekly meeting with them, you show the progress of the software with them, you create this relationship with the customer. In case you have not met with a deadline, you can say, customer, please give me 2 weeks time or 3 weeks time, you will get your product. And based on such type of relationship, this can save you money. Okay, the customer can say, look, even in the contract, you have to pay a fine, but I know you are working on my project. I have seen a lot of functional requirement, a lot of interfaces, and it's fine. Okay, I won't charge you. So this is the principle behind of having a good relationship with your customer, which is very important. Okay, a very professional relationship is very important with a customer. So this is the Agile. Okay, and using the Agile methodology, any point of time, if there is a change in the requirement with a customer, we can take this requirement and reflect it on the software. This is important because you see, customers, they are people, very hard people. Okay, sometimes they are not even aware what they want. Okay, they can say, I want the interface to be blue color. Tomorrow their mind changes and they want the interface to be yellow color. And it's okay. You have to stick whatever they are saying because they are the one that will bring money to your company. Okay, so it is very important while developing something. You can, at any point of time, in case there's any change in the requirement, you can reflect that. Okay, it's not like, sorry, sir, I won't be able to reflect it. I won't be able to do it because the framework I'm using to develop your project is not appropriate for that. You can't say this to the customer. Okay, the customer won't be happy. So when using the Agile methodology, for example, the Scrum methodology, at any point of time, if there's any change in the requirement, you can reflect that. Okay, and this is very, very important, especially for business. Okay, business-wise, this is very important. And now coming to one model that you have in Agile. Okay, this is not the only model. You have other model in Agile, like Kanban model. You have the Agile principle, Prince model. Okay, so you have a lot of model, a lot of framework that use the Agile methodology. But one of the most common we have currently, and a lot of companies, they are trying to use it. Okay, I'm using this word, trying to use it, because they still don't know how to use it properly. So they're trying to use it is the Scrum model. Okay, now the Scrum model, you will have the same different generic activities I mentioned earlier. Okay, like you have to gather the specification from the customer. You will have, once gathered the specification, you have a design phase, then the implementation phase, then the testing phase, you have a maintenance phase. So this is generic. Okay, for all your framework, development framework, these generic steps, they will be there. But the only thing is different is how to proceed on working to them. So here in this process, okay, in Scrum, you have certain actors, certain meetings, certain activities and processes, which we do stepwise, and this will make us trying to, or abiding to the Agile methodology. The first thing I want to explain here is you have something called the artifacts, like the paperwork Okay, you have two things. One is called the product backlog and the sprint backlog. Now, what is the product backlog? What happens is here, when you use this method, you will get the requirement from the customer. Now, the customer, like I said, they are not necessarily IT people. They can be someone with another background. And having another background, maybe this person is not having not all the knowledge about development processes. So the customer here will come to you. And when the customer comes to you with all the inputs, with all the functional and non-functional requirement, you have someone called as the product owner. So this person, the client, will come and meet with the product owner. The product owner can be someone from your internal organization. Means, let's assume I'm working at Accenture. The product owner can be someone from Accenture itself, or it can be someone from another company hired by the customer. The role of a product owner is to formalize all the requirement, all the input from the customer. Okay, the product owner here will deal with the customer to get the true, proper functional and non-functional requirement, like deal with business, what you want the software to do. This is the role of a product owner, to get this information from the customer. A product owner is someone with a good number of years of experience in development phase, is someone with a very good background of IT. This person will be able to formulate the different functional and non-functional requirements from inputs from the customer. Now, once the product owner has gathered all the different functional and non-functional requirements, the product owner now will come to the team. This is what we call the Scrum team. Like I said, in the Scrum team, you will have persons skillful in programming, development phase. You will have persons skillful in testing. You have people that can deal with the customer, having a good relationship and communication skills. And this little team, normally it is around 6 to 9, 10 people per team. Okay, we call it the Scrum team. They are cross-functional and they are managed by a team leader. Okay, someone will be in charge, of course, of this team. This team leader, we call it the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master is someone, again, very, very knowledgeable about the Agile methodology, but also someone, the Scrum Master should be someone very good in programming, in testing, in dealing with a client. So this is a multi-skillful person, the Scrum Master, which is very important to have in a team. And in the industry, we say the team leader. We don't refer to Scrum Master, but the team leader is the same thing as the Scrum Master when you use the Scrum model. Okay, so the Scrum Master is responsible of this Scrum team. Now, once the product owner have all the functional and non-functional requirements, like a list of requirements from the customer, the product owner will come and sit with the Scrum team. Like here we have meeting. Okay, this is called the sprint planning meeting. Like, let's sit together now. Let's discuss about all the list of functional and non-functional requirements, like what the software needs to do. For example, let's say we are this COVID situation. We are having all our classes or meeting online, and we say we want to develop. The client want to develop a learning management system. So a learning management system, okay, will have a set of functional and non-functional requirements. For example, a teacher should be able to log in the system. A teacher should be able to upload learning resources via the system. So this is the functional requirement. You have a big list of that. Now, what happened in the sprint planning meeting, the product owner and the Scrum team together with the Scrum Master, they will sit together. They will see all the lists of the requirements, and this list of requirements is called the product backlog. So the product backlog is just a big list having all the functional and non-functional requirements. Now, they will sit with this list. They will check if all the different functional and non-functional requirements listed out, if they are feasible to implement. Like I said, IT or software doesn't solve all problems. You need to know what you can do and what you cannot do using IT, okay, or with a software. So they will check if the list of functional and non-functional requirements, if they're feasible. From that, they will also rank, they will also give a priority to the functional requirement. Like which one of the functional requirement is of highest value. Highest value means what you should have in the software to ensure it's working properly. For example, a logging system is very important for a teacher, for a student, for an admin, for example, school admin. So this is a very important requirement that you need to have in your software. So this becomes a high value requirement. Likewise, they will give values, they will give a number depending on the value of a functional requirement. And they will modify the list. The highest value requirement will be at the start, number 1, and this will keep on decreasing the value till the last functional requirement. This becomes the product backlog. Now, once the product backlog is over, like this list is ready, it's over, the job of a product owner is done. Okay, but here the product owner can go. The product owner will go to another customer. Okay, you don't have only one customer in the company. As a product owner, you will have several customers that you will have, or you will be responsible for them. Now, here the job starts for the Scrum team. Once the product backlog is ready, now the team will continue to sit together to define the sprint backlog. The sprint backlog is they will look at the product backlog, all the different requirements, and they will start to work on a certain amount of requirement at a time. So for example, let's say there's requirement, functional requirement, 1, functional requirement 2, and functional requirement 3. They say, okay, let's start working on the first 3 functional requirements. Let's take it out of a product backlog and have an own list for us. This list is called a sprint backlog. And a sprint backlog, normally when the team work on it, depending on the complexity, they have to complete it in a duration of 1 to 4 weeks. Okay, this is called a sprint. All the different requirements that they have took out of the product backlog, and they normally have a duration of 1 to 4 weeks to complete it. So this is the rule here. Now, the team, the Scrum team, they will work on this sprint. This is called a sprint. Okay, they will work on the sprint. They have a duration of normally 1 or 4 weeks to complete it. It depends on the complexity. Sometimes if the requirement is okay, the team is able to work faster on it, they may complete it in 1 week or 2 week time. Sometimes it's a little more complex. They will complete it in 4 week times. It may happen sometimes it will extend, but then you need to know how to minimize time for other sprint so that you ensure you are within the deadline given to you. And now at the end, like let's say you have completed the logging function, which was 1 sprint, together with all the presentation, means the background color, everything is beautifully okay. Means here you have completed the first sprint, for example. And now, which is very important, you will have another meeting called the sprint review meeting. Here, for the sprint review meeting, you will demo the functions, whatever you have implemented, whatever you have developed, you need to show it to the product owner. The product owner, in other words, here is a customer, because the product owner is the person with IT knowledge. So the product owner will act as the customer. So you show it now to the product owner. The product owner will, in this demo, the product owner will see all functional requirements you have developed, the background, the interface, how it looks, and so on. So you have to explain what you have covered, what are the different principles you have used, and so on, and you get the feedback from the product owner. A product owner acting here as the customer will see if truly you have implemented the function that was needed, to check if the interface is as per the requirement of the customer. Okay, you are using what we say by human-computer interaction principles. Okay, if the interface is properly developed, color is properly there, size of button and so on, they are well defined. So here the product owner will have an overview of the interface, and also on the functional requirement, means the function that this particular sprint should have. So here you get a feedback from the product owner. In case the product owner is not happy, the latter will say, okay, do certain modification. and you rework on the sprint because you have already code everything. So you work on the sprint. Here you will do the testing as well. Huh? So you work on the code again to meet with the requirement of a product owner. If the product owner is happy in the meeting and say, okay, it's fine, start working on sprint 2, means you're over. For the first sprint, your job is done. Okay, you have a green light. Now you move to the second sprint. Second sprint again is what? Is you take the product backlog where you have all your different requirements listed down there. You take now another set of requirements out of it. This becomes your second sprint backlog. And again, you have a duration of 1 to 4 weeks to work on it. Similar thing, same process. At the end of the day, you have your product, your sprint 2 ready for a demo. Okay, so this is a process how you move in the Agile Scrum model. And one meeting again, which is very important, and unfortunately we don't do it in the industry, is the sprint retrospective meeting. This meeting is held at the end of the sprint. Like I have completed the first sprint, I have shown it to the product owner, means I have covered my sprint review. The product owner is happy. Before you moved to sprint number 2, you need to have a little sprint retrospective meeting. This is very important, and unfortunately we don't do it in the industry, because this meeting, it helps to put the team together, the Scrum team together with the Scrum Master, and we are able to talk here. We are able to see, like for the first sprint, what was wrong, or what can we do to improve on the second sprint. You see, continuous improvement is very important when you develop a software. So based on the experience you had with the first sprint, how you can improve on the second one, what we need to do to improve on the second one. Here, everybody share the idea. Everybody will share the experience. And based on that, the Scrum Master, acting as a team leader, will say, okay, so as from sprint 2, these are the modifications that we will do on working on the sprint 2 to ensure that we have a more smooth operation. Okay, smooth operation is very important in the industry. So sprint retrospective is a very important meeting, and it's not a long meeting, it's just a few minutes, 20 minutes, but it is very important tomorrow to get the experience of all your colleagues. Okay, you need to know, you need to understand the people. This is Agile. Agile say give or emphasis on the individual working in your team. So you need to know the point of view, you need to know the experience, and based on that, you improve the whole process. So it's a very important meeting. And another important meeting you have, which is daily, is called the Scrum meeting. Okay, daily Scrum meeting. This is a little, again, 15-minute stand-up meeting. You won't sit down. Okay, you won't sit down. Tomorrow I go to work. Before you start working, you have this daily Scrum meeting. So what it is, like all your friends, all your colleagues in this department, together with a Scrum Master, they will stand up in a little conference room, and they will discuss, like, today what we have to do. Like today we are still working on sprint number 1. What are you going to implement? Each one will say, okay, today I'm working on this task. Another friend will say, today I'm going to test this task. It may happen you have not met with certain requirement in the previous day. You will have to say why. I'm still working on, for example, this requirement because yesterday I was not able to complete it. This is normal, okay? You are not machine. You have this 1 to 4 week time duration to work on the sprint, and it may happen if you was given certain tasks to work on the day, and it may happen you are not able to complete it, and it's okay. Then you have to complete it on the following day, but you have to say about this in the daily Scrum meeting. Here, the Scrum Master will see the progress of the team. We see if the team will be able to deliver the sprint in maximum 4 week duration given. Okay, and if there's a particular person, for example, not able to meet with a deadline of a task, and here the Scrum Master will be able to know, this person is facing certain issue, for example, okay, and after the daily Scrum meeting, the Scrum Master will go and will sit with this person and say, okay, tell me, what's the problem? Why are you not able to complete the task given to you? Okay, it may happen the person don't know how to implement the requirement. Okay, you as programmer, it doesn't mean you know all the concept of programming. It may happen tomorrow. Some requirement was very difficult. You have not been able to implement it. You don't know the programming out of it. And here the Scrum Master will come and help you. The Scrum Master, someone very expert in programming, sometimes also help the team. If the deadline is not being respected, the Scrum Master is able to see, we are not going to deliver the first sprint, for example, in the maximum duration of 4 weeks. The Scrum Master will also come and sit and do the programming, the coding together with the Scrum team. So here we all work together. We all help each one another in the team and ensure that at least after 4 weeks, we have one sprint ready, like a set of requirements ready, and we are able to show it to the customer. We are able to have a demo with the customer here, which is the product owner. And we keep on moving like this. This is a process. We keep doing this process until we have completed all the requirements, okay, functional and non-functional. We have completed all of them, and we know now that the system is ready. But again, in this sprint, remember, once you develop something, once you have coded something, you also have to test it. This is why we have this cross-functional team. You have a tester there that will go and test this sprint if it's okay without any errors and bug, and only then you move to the sprint review meeting where you have a product owner that will come and you do the demo with a product owner. So this is the Scrum model. What happened is in the industry, we do have certain meetings we carry out, or certain tasks we try to do, but we don't use the Scrum model as projected here properly. Okay, and this is a very new concept, especially I'm talking about firms in Mauritius. This is a very new concept. We are trying to inbuild it in our culture, but doesn't mean that Agile or Scrum is applicable to all project. It depends on the complexity. Scrum is a solution for big project. You have a lot of functional requirements, very big project. You won't go and use Agile or Scrum for a small project or for your dissertation. No. So you need to know, like, you have a lot of frameworks, but which framework to use, this depends on the complexity of your project, of the software you want to develop. This is very important to understand. Okay. And like I'm saying, the industry now they're trying to use this Scrum. Okay, you will see a lot of vacancy. Okay, I normally go a lot on my job and try to see what are the different vacancy that have posted, and you will see a lot of vacancy now looking for a Scrum Master, looking for a product owner, and the requirement for the job position is to get a certification in Scrum. We do have certification, okay? You have to pay for that. You get certified as product owner, you get certified as Scrum Master. So you have like 3 months or 4 months of courses to follow and a final examination at the end. And I see a lot now, just type of vacancy, trying to get people knowledgeable about the Scrum, like Scrum Masters, product owner into the organization. Okay, and to be able, of course, to be able to implement this model for a project. So what's the major difference now? What's the major difference between the traditional method we looked and the Agile or the Scrum model we just oversee right now is something what we call the overlapping development. You see, in the traditional method, we normally have this principle of getting requirement, then we move to the design and implementation process, and only then you will do all the testing, only then you move and you do the maintenance of the requirement, you have a demo with the customer. But here we have a concept of overlapping development, like Sneshi explained to us. Traditional is linear, and here is overlapping development for Agile. And the advantage of this overlapping development, it helps you to move faster in the process. You don't have to wait for one process to be over, then move to the end of a process. Since we are working in a cross-functional team, means you have people adapt skillful to do all the resource needed for a project, you are able to overlap the development process, and you are able to move faster in the development phase together with its testing and so on. This is why normally a sprint, okay, like I shown here, normally a sprint, it is within 1 to 4 week times. So this is the overlapping development framework of Agile we try to implement now. Okay, again, I said it depends on the complexity of a project. Okay, and Agile or Scrum is quite expensive to implement because you need to get the appropriate resources in terms of people. You need to get the appropriate tools and framework. Okay, to do the testing. You don't do manual testing. Okay, you have software to do testing for you. Okay, Jenkins. You have a software called Jenkins to test the quality of the code. If the code you have written, they are of good quality. You have used the proper principle and then standard while coding. So it's quite expensive, such type of software, and Agile is expensive to implement and is appropriate, like I said, for big project, not for smaller one, not for medium-sized. Smaller or medium-sized, I will encourage you to go with a traditional one, especially iterative model. But if you have very big project, then you move with the Scrum model. Well, like I explained the big picture, but these are the Scrum roles, like we saw. You have the customer. The customer brings the different inputs, like the different requirement of the software to the product owner. The product owner is someone like very skillful in IT, and in other words, will be the customer. Okay, it can be someone from your own company. It can be someone hired by the customer. So it depends. And the product owner is fair just to act as the customer to ensure that at the end of the day, when you have the presentation showing the final sprint, okay, the product owner, being the customer, will see if you are aligned to what the requirement is. That's all. This is the only role of the product owner. Okay, the product owner will have the right to say, I accept the sprint or I reject the sprint. This is the role of the product owner. The Scrum Master is responsible for the Scrum team to ensure that the team is working perfectly fine, that the team is working efficiently. Tomorrow, I'm someone in the Scrum team, have any issues, okay, I'm not happy or whatever problem you have, you need to address with the Scrum Master. The Scrum Master's role is to bring in solution to the team. This is the role of the Scrum Master. Bring in solution to the team to ensure that the cross-functional team is working efficiently. And when you're working efficiently as a team, of course, you are able to develop good product, means quality software, well tested, everything, and you are within the duration, within the deadline given to you to do your final delivery, of course. So this is the different Scrum roles you have, like I explained. And you have a Scrum process. The Scrum process are the different meetings you have. First meeting you have is called the sprint planning meeting, means to define the product backlog, like what are the functional requirement, and from the product backlog, you will remove a certain requirement. This form your sprint backlog. You have a daily Scrum meeting. This you do it every day. You go to work at 8 o'clock, at 8:15 after some coffee or after some chat with your friends. At 8:15 to 8:30, you have your Scrum meeting. Okay, daily Scrum meeting just to discuss what you have covered yesterday or what you have done yesterday. What are you going to do today? If you have any problems, okay, you won't raise it as an issue, but you will mention, okay, I have not been able to complete this task because of X, Y, and Z. After the daily Scrum meeting, the Scrum Master will come and address to you, okay, tell me more about X, Y, Z. Why have you not able to complete it due to X, Y, Z? And don't be afraid to share here, okay? Don't say, I have able to complete it and you're still working the task. This will affect the team. This will affect the duration of the sprint. So you have to be open. You have to say, okay, I have not been able to implement it. Go and ask for help. Don't be hesitant or don't try to hide information here, because this is one way in a daily Scrum meeting. This is a one way where the Scrum Master will measure the progress of the work of a sprint. Okay, and believe me, the Scrum Master will come later to you and try to help you out, or other colleagues will come in and help you out. This is why I say Agile, we work in a cross-functional team. We are here to help each one another. Okay, and you have a sprint review. At the end of the sprint, you have a demo with the product owner to show the business functionality, like what you have implemented, what are the different functions you have implemented, and also how the interface do, both interface and the functionality of the product here needs to be demonstrated to the product owner. That will vet and give either other modification or changes you have to do, or will give the green light for you to proceed with sprint number 2. Okay, in the sprint review meeting, normally what we did in Accenture is we don't invite only the product owner. We used to invite people from other departments as well. Like I said, invite the world. So we invited people from other departments to say, okay, come see what we have implemented. So let's make it a little more fun. And we normally all sit there. The Scrum Master will do the demo. Sometimes the Scrum team will also say some points, the ideas, and so on, and we get the feedback from the product owner. But we also get feedback from other colleagues working in other team, which is very positive, and also help us to forge the requirements for our sprint. So, like I said, sprint review meeting, like invite the world. And after the sprint review meeting, like after we have the requirement, like the go with the product owner, and we need now to move to the second sprint, we do another meeting called the retrospective meeting, where we just share our experience. We just share our experience, like how we can improve, or what are the difficulties that we faced with the first sprint, and what we need now to do to avoid such type of mistakes or problems or issues in the second sprint. So everybody share the experience, the ideas, like a continuous improvement process for the second sprint. And we keep on doing it. We keep on, after the second sprint, we have to do it again. After the third sprint, we have to do it again, because this is a continual process to improve on the quality, to improve on the experience, to improve on the relationships of your colleagues, and ensure that the team works better and better. Okay, this is what we call a continuous improvement. And of course, you see, just talking like this, okay, just talking, you don't measure progress. So you need to have burn down chart. Now we have several types of burn down charts. One of the most common burn down chart we use is called the sprint burn down chart. Like you have one sprint. One sprint consists of a few requirements. Okay, so each requirement will have a marks, will have a points, like I said earlier in the product backlog. Each one will have a certain numbers associated with it, depending on its complexity, depending on its functionality, high priority, highest mark. Okay, so we have, for example, let's say 4 or 5 functional requirement. We have each one will have a mark, a point associated with it. So we'll sum it up and we define it like this, a certain range of points. Now, while working on it, let's say I have completed the first one. I have completed the first functional requirement. So the marks will start to decrease. Slowly, the mark will keep on decreasing when I have completed all my tasks, when I have completed all my functional requirements, for example, in this one sprint. So here you will list it down. This is called a sprint burn down chart, and we have a target. Like I said, normally, if the complexity of a sprint is not much, we can try to deliver it in 1 or 2 week time. But if the complexity and the project of the sprint is high, it's quite complex, then we try maximum to fit it maximum of 4 weeks. So we have below in our x-axis, we have our duration, and on the y-axis, we have marks, points associated with the different functional requirement you have in one sprint. So this is one where the Scrum Master can check and see that you are within the deadline. You are respecting the deadline, means after 4 weeks, you know, the product, the sprint is ready for a demo. So this is the job of the Scrum Master to measure the progress of the team. And in case we are not within the deadline, you need to find a solution for that. Why? The big question is why? People are not working. I doubt it, but people need help or assistance. This is the role of the Scrum Master, to give help and assistance and the team to work together to ensure that at the end of the burn down chart, let's say day 14, 2 weeks, the project is ready for a demo and to move to a second sprint, where you will have another sprint burn down chart to measure the progress. And also, I wanted to share with you a free tool for agile development, which is the Jira software. It's free until you are in a group of 10 person. You see, like I said, Scrum is working in a team. So if you are, let's say you want to play with it and you are less than 10 person, it's a free, you can create an account. I will share the slide and the link with Musakia that will distribute it to you guys. And this one software is a free software. You just create an account on it and you will have all the tools, like the interface to create the product backlog, to create, to give marks, like the point, the weightage to your functional requirement. From the product backlog, you will be able to split it into the sprint. You will be able to create burn down charts. The burn down charts will reflect with a mark like sprint interactive. You will be able to get the chart, like how the requirement, the task is completing and how the chart is like slowly going down and so on. So it's a free software. I'm going to share the link with you. I encourage you to try to create the product backlog, to create the charts and so on. And Jira, we use it a lot in the industry as well. It is the role of the role of the Scrum Master to ensure like the KPI is being respected and so on using this software. Well, that's all for me for today. Brief because of the duration. If I had to talk about Agile and Scrum, it's very a lot of experience to share. But because of time constraint, this is what we have to cover today: a brief introduction about the difference between Agile and traditional, and also how the Scrum model works and how to use it, which is very important. That's all what we have for today, and thank you for your kind attention. Thank you for your presence as well. I can see a lot of attendees from, we have Dr. Upasna Singh as well. Thank you, Dr. Upasna Singh from South Africa joining us today. We have, I can see a lot of my students from UDM, Middlesex, UTM. We have Amity Mauritius as well. We have Prof. Kadeko joining us. So thank you. We have Mr. Clara, my mentor. So thank you very much, Agile Mauritius section here. Mr. Swan joining us as well. Mr. Arabi, thank you a lot for. Mr. Fugwa is responsible for every framework setup here, for the Zoom, training us, and then thank you very much for your kind attention, everybody. We move to the question time now. Let's move to the chat. So, thank you. Let me just check for a question if you have a few questions. One question for me, Mr. Fugwa. Yeah, very important question asked by Mr. Rabi is like, what's the difference between agile methodology and interactive approach? Like I said, they are same thing, more or less the same thing. Just the difference is in an agile methodology, you will have the team working as cross-functional team. Whereas in the interactive approach, okay, you still have separate teams. You have one department for the development. Once the development process is over, they will move to the testing part, another team, okay? But here in the agile methodology, we will use the same interactive approach, like having sprint, but instead of having separate teams, we are going to have a single team where you have people with all the skills grouped together to ensure we move faster into the development process. Again, another question with Mr. Fugwa is agile methodologies are only a passing fade and is the same time waterfall methodology, just repeat differently. True, like I said, agile is the big word we are all trying to use in the industry, but if you use it appropriately, not only Scrum, we have Kanban, we have Prince methodology, which are all trying to use the agile concept, and this is the new trend. But they are still very big words because we can't use them properly. So this is one of the reasons why now you have Agile certification, we have courses designed for Agile, so that we train our people to be able to stick to the methodology and use it appropriately, else it will fade out soon by other methodologies. Prof. Ashish is from Amity Mauritius. Thank you, Prof. Thank you. I have few comments from Pranav as well. Thank you. Mr. Clavel, lecturer from UTM, my mentor. Thank you, sir. Pranav, one question. Do companies in Mauritius, based on your experience, take into velocity and capacity in implementation of Scrum? True, yeah. Like I said, velocity is very important to ensure that you meet with the requirement at the end of a sprint. Now, the capacity, it depends on the skill of the person. This is why I said Scrum is very expensive to implement, because you need to recruit person capable of implementing Scrum. And to get such type of people, the persons need to be well aware about programming, about testing tools we have, about dealing with customers and so on. Now, to get a person with such type of quality and forming a team out of that, normally the Scrum team is between 5 to 6, 7, sometimes up to 9 people. This is very expensive. Okay. And of course, the velocity is one way to measure or benchmark you are within the deadline. And if you have a team with a good capacity, of course, you will be able to deliver your product at the end. Dr. Clarel, it's good to hear from you. What are your recommendations on how to bring more team experience for students across department and even school of faculties? I think answering the question of Dr. Clarel, I think to be able, based on my experience, to be able to bring this cross-functional aspect in our student is first, we need to promote group work. Okay, and as lecturer, as researchers, I think we all do is to promote group work. Like we give an assignment and we say, like, look, this is a group assignment, so try to work together and try to use the Agile framework, for example, the different tools we have that I also shared, Jira software. Try to use them. Try to have a product backlog. From a product backlog, you have your different sprint and work on that. Have a duration. Try to have meeting together, like daily and virtual meeting because of this COVID situation. A virtual meeting, talk, explain what are the difficulties you face. Try to work together. I think if we inbuild such type of culture at the very start with our student, tomorrow when they go in the industry, they already have this culture. They already know how to function or work as a team, and they will easily be able to accommodate themselves, to inbuild themselves with the industry culture and work efficiently, which is very important. This is one of the reasons we always, as a lecturer and researcher, promote group work. Okay, group work is not like one person have to do all the job and the other one will just sit and then get the marks at the end of the day, but work together to create this culture of Agile so that you can reflect it back in the industry. Okay, Pranav, one question from Mr. Chamu. Is risk burnout chart a crucial aspect in Agile methodology? Yeah, like I said, for Agile, you have several types of burnout chart. You have sprint burnout chart, you have product burnout chart, you have a risk burnout chart, but you will have to select an appropriate one, like for your project, for the complexity of the project, what you want to use. Okay, normally we won't have a product one, a sprint one. No, try to get only one, use only one burnout chart. And all the burnout chart, the aim is, the purpose of the burnout chart is to help you to measure if you are within the duration given to you. Okay, now risk burnout chart, it is very important to know the experience, your people as well. You see, in a team, sometimes there is conflict where you have conflict resolution, conflict management to ensure is being respected. The job here, this is the job of a Scrum Master, to ensure that the team is working efficiently. And there's sometimes you feel like you don't want to work, and this is normal. We are people. You get such type of experience in a lot in the industry, and this is the role of a Scrum Master, to try to help a person, to try to help a team as a team to work and meet with the requirement. And I will say here, answering to the question of Mr. Chamu, is software development, working in the industry, doing software is very fun, is very good experience. But if you are not able to meet with the requirement of the clients or the duration, you become very frustrated as well. Okay, this is why one of the reasons a lot of people in software Normally they drop down to other department, not programming, or try to do other jobs because they feel that it is a very difficult job or frustrating job, which is not true. This is just because they are not using the appropriate framework or they are not seeking help when required. Okay, so from my experience, I will say that software development is very fun until you are using the proper framework and you know how to use it. Thank you, Dr. Pia. Well, more questions, guys, please feel free to ask. I will also share the slide and the link of Jira software with you. Anytime, feel free to use it. Try to use it for the assignment. I strongly encourage it. Well, I think that's all. Again, thank you everybody for your kind attention. And now I give the MC, Ms. Sneshi, a few words to say. Sneshi, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Ramwodin, for this informative talk on agile methodologies. I am sure it will be of great use to all the participants. We have come to an end of today's presentation. Thank you all for taking your precious time to attend our event. Have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.